Hey there, how y'all doing? This is Data, getting ready to get back on trail here in the wee hours of the morning on Monday, March 17th. It did rain like crazy last night for about 2 hours from like 9 till 11. But everything has dried out a little bit this morning. You can see the moon there in the background, which is almost full. The sky is clear. I'm in pretty good spirits. So I've decided to have a cold breakfast, just coffee and some stingers. And I'm going to head out and do my first ever morning hike. I'll probably try to be on the trail by 7 or 7:30. The sun will be coming up by then, but I'll still hike with the light. And it's the first time I've ever tried to do one of these shots with my headlamp on, so I don't really even know what that's going to look like on camera when I'm done. But anyway, this is me just saying, good morning, Internet. I'll see y'all down the trail a little bit. Good morning. Hey there, how y'all doing today? It's 8 a.m. I got on trail about 7. I didn't need my headlamp or a jacket or anything like that on the outside. It was already light enough. I decided to be bold and start cold. This is the first sunrise, sign of the sunrise I've seen today. The clouds are finally burning off. I've covered almost 2 miles in the first hour, with some slight uphills and some slight downhills, so I'm making good time. I decided to start today with a cold breakfast and get moving, and it does seem like that's worked. So I'm going to take a quick standing break here, and the trail looks pretty good. Come across a couple of small blowdowns. This is from whence I came, right here, and the sunlight coming through the trees. Now that I've been out for a while, it's really nice to see. So there's sunrise on the Appalachian Trail here on Monday, March 17th, I believe it is, at 8 a.m. I'm going to hydrate and have a snack and get back at it. So it's 9:15, and I have made it to the Blue Blaze down to Whiskey Hollow shelter in about 2 hours and 15 minutes, something like that, which is really good time for me. So 2 miles an hour plus. I don't think that's really a tribute to my trail legs just yet, but it might be a little bit. But it's also a very nice path, very cruisy path, downhill, well graded. Only 3 or 4 blowdowns that, from the looks of the maintenance on the rest of this trail, the PACT will probably get to very quickly, because the trail is really very well maintained. The Whiskey Hollow shelter's brand new. I think this is the one that folks have told me is one of the newest ones on the trail, and is very fancy double-decker stuff like that. But it is 0.3 of a mile downhill. So I don't think I want to add 0.6 of a mile plus the climb onto my day, because as you can see, as much as the sun was out earlier, it keeps coming and going, and this is looking to the south, and then this is looking to the west where it's gloomier, and I feel like I'm racing the remnants of that storm. I don't want to get caught out in the rain. So I'm modifying the plan a little bit. I'm going to head to Rod Hollow, which is 8.2 miles away, after I take about a 15-minute sit break here with pack off and boots off, have a snack, and hydrate quite a bit. And there's a stream just before you get here, just south of this Blue Blaze, which was running a mighty, and which is it seems like probably always a really reliable water source. It's a little tricky to cross because of one blowdown on it, but that'll probably be gone before too long. So I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to head for Rod Hollow, and when I get to Rod Hollow, I'm going to reassess whether I spend the night there, because again, it's only 9:30 and I'm moving pretty well. And the path to Rod Hollow there's a climb, but it's not awful. At least it doesn't look like it on the maps. So I'll assess when I get to Rod Hollow. I may go a couple of miles beyond that to start into the roller coaster, a couple of miles, and then pick a tent site out. That will mean that tomorrow, instead of having 10 miles into Bear's Den, I'll only have, maybe 6 or 7 or 8.
So we'll see how that goes, and part of that obviously will be also dependent on how steep this climb is I'm getting ready to head up, and on whether or not these skies that are clearing to my east continue to clear, or if I get rained on. So it's about 10:30, and I've reached the boundary of the Sky Meadows State Park, which has some restrictions on parking, on camping and overnight activities, and also fires, campfires, and all of that. I'm not sure where Route 5017 is, but I assume I'm at the southern boundary right now. So for a little while now down this path, I wouldn't be able to camp. So that may or may not throw a wrinkle in my plan to camp at some place after I get to Rod Hollow. I'll have to see where Rod Hollow is in relation to the boundary of the 5017 highway marker. But that's fine. If I have to stay at Rod Hollow, I'll stay at Rod Hollow, or I'll find some place that's where camping is allowed north of Rod Hollow. But as it stands right now, I'm still due to get into Rod Hollow by 2 or 3, maybe 4, so I'll have a couple hours of time left with which I'd like to get some more hiking in, get a start on the roller coaster like I was talking about earlier, but I don't know if I'm going to or not. I tend to be a little rule oriented, as you might have guessed from the trail name data, so I'm not likely to camp in places I'm not supposed to camp. I don't know, it's just not how I do things. Haven't shot much of the trail today because, to be real, this is pretty much what it's looked like. Some of it's been uphill and a little bit challenging, but not much. Some of it's been downhill and kind of cruisy, but generally view-wise, this is kind of what it looks like. It's a bramble. There's some older mature trees, some of which look like they might be dead, just waiting to get blown over. And it's kind of nice for this time of year because the bramble blocks the wind, and as the sun has started to come through, I've quit worrying about the possibility of rain, and the sun warms me up a little bit. So, but not a lot of interesting stuff on the side to shoot. Of course, it has made for quick hiking today. Oh, I met 3 section hikers of my cohort, gentlemen in their 60s. One of them has a trail named Atlas, and Atlas shared that he's over 1,200 miles on his multi-year section hike, and his intent is to finish the whole thing before he's 70. So good luck out there, Atlas. Hope you had a good hike today, and maybe I'll see you up the trail someplace. And thanks also for the conversation and advice. So I'll get back to hiking and put this away now. Yep, I can sure tell I got to a state park. Signs all over. There's one over here that I went past. Shows you how far ahead the places I came from. It says Manassas Gap Shelter is 7.7 miles away. That's where I started my day. Then it's got a really very detailed trail marker here for the connections between the state park trails and the Appalachian Trail. I'm obviously going northbound on the Appalachian Trail, and then down here just a little further it says that the Rod Hollow Shelter is 6.6 miles away, and that Harper's Ferry is 32.8. Of course, that sign belies the fact that the roller coaster lies in that 32.8 miles, but, you know, that's just a silly joke, I guess. Trick on people. So, I guess my next pause will probably be at Ashby Gap, 2.9 miles. So, I have less than 4 miles left to go in the day. I'm next to State Highway or Interstate 50. I don't know which it is. You'll hear in the background. I've come across a little creek with a footbridge on it. I'm going to collect some water. I'm going to take a sitting break but not take the pack off because I've got about 3.7 left to Rod Hollow, and it is still only 11:44. So if I make Rod Hollow by 2, which is possible, I'll go ahead and head on to a couple of campsites I found that are just past that in the start of the roller coaster. Came across a bunch of little footbridges. because this area evidently floods, and there's also an old stone wall buried in there. You can see part of it through here maybe. Looks like dates back to the Civil War before. But the trail walking right next to this interstate is kind of a change of scenery. Not altogether pleasant, but not bad. At least I know there's Wi-Fi and cell reception here. And this creek is running fast after the rain from last night, so I'm going to sit for a minute and collect some water, and I'm going to get about my business hiking on to Rod Hollow Shelter. And a quick shout out to the Boy Scouts of America 2008 Eagle Project from Troop 1018, because they built this nice bridge that we get to stand and collect water at. So thanks, fellas. It's been here for a while, still in really good shape. Good job. So I just finished that water fill at the Boy Scouts footbridge and crossed what I think is Virginia 50, US 50, I don't know. It's a frickin' interstate practically. It's 4 lanes divided. There are markers that hikers will be crossing there, but from the behavior of drivers, you would not know that. So be very careful. If you're northbound or southbound, but in particular the lanes on the highway that are westbound, that is the north set of pair of lanes, the drivers come off of a big corner and it's downhill, and some Amazon delivery truck driver in a prime truck just about ran me over. And I had plenty of time to cross, and he was clearly well above the speed limit screaming down that hill. So be very careful crossing Route 50 just immediately north of Addis Gap. So now a mile or so north of Addis Gap, I'm back in a beautiful hardwood forest with beech trees and with big mature oaks. The sun coming out every once in a while. A couple of miles south of Rod Hollow Shelter, and it's about noon or 12:30, 12:39 to be exact, and the Appalachian Trail has once again gotten very scenic. So, you know, today it really just keeps surprising me. Some parts of the trail, like where they're putting that pipeline through and other things, are really not all that interesting to look at. And then, you know, a couple of minutes later, you cross an interstate, we're about to get run down, and that was not fun. But then, half an hour after that, come across this little hardwood forest, moss all over the rocks. And if you needed water, this would be an easy place to get yourself some water. A little bit of sunshine coming through the trees, and suddenly all is right in my world of hiking. So I am just about to Rod Hollow Shelter, and I've come across another one of these. There are a set of boardwalks, but then there are a couple of stream crossings that you climb across rocks to get to, rock hop across. In this section of trail, there have been, I don't know, 7 or 8 of these. They're all pretty easy to come across, but I thought I'd show them to folks. It's easy to stop and get water if you need it, and also it's actually not too hard to get across them, but you have to stop and think for a minute. So it's been a fun little challenge on and off throughout the course of the day. And I am going to be staying at Rod Hollow this evening. I'm getting in about 2 o'clock, but the campsite that I had looked at that's the first one into the roller coaster, is actually about 3.4 miles further in from Rod Hollow Shelter. And I have time to make that, except at the last 1.5 miles or 2 miles of that it really is the beginning of the roller coaster. And it's a steep enough climb that on AWOL's little fold-out guide and in other places it's marked as a steep climb. And I just don't think that I have it to make a steep climb at the end of what's already been a 13-mile day. So that would have made it a 16-mile day or so, which would have been my longest day ever. And I think trying to end my longest day on a uphill climb it's very steep, probably ill-advised. So instead, I'll be, oh, here's the Rod Hollow shelter, what do you know? I'll be hunkering down at Rod Hollow starting about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll just try to make sure that I get an early start tomorrow because I'll have about 10 miles of the roller coaster to do. Here we go. Here we go. And it's like this blowdown either landed right along the blue blaze to the shelter or somebody just happened to go ahead and move it there. Anyway, I did cross a day hiker who's familiar with the area, and he had just hiked through here, and he said this is a very nice shelter. He had lunch here. So I'll update you once I get there, I guess. Okay, it is 2 o'clock, and I am at Rod Hollow Shelter. It's 3-sided, and it doesn't have those little partial sides on the front. And it's a little windy today, and might be this evening, so I think I'm going to set myself up on one of these tent pads. In fact, I'm standing in the one that I think I'm going to use. But here's a bare pole, and it does have a nice little separate eating area. And then it has tent pads over here that are laid out. Not too wet after last night's rain. They look like they're big enough for the Durston. We'll find out. And there's no one else here, but the shelter looks to me like it could be kind of, breezy if the wind picks up this evening. And off in the distance you can probably see the privy. And I came up the little path right there, and just a short distance off there's a stream, which on far out and other places is listed as not real reliable, but since we had a bunch of rain last night, it's plenty reliable. So I'm going to come over here to my tent pad of choice, see if I can squeeze my Durston on that, and then go down to the picnic table and have some dinner, and start trying to strategize how to survive the roller coaster tomorrow. So that's it for this update. So, first camp chore is to gather water, which I've done. Second camp chore is to set up your shelter, my shelter, which is what I just did. This is my Durston. It's pitched tonight with 7 stakes. 8 stakes, actually. I've staked out the vestibule, I've staked out the tie lines on both ends, and I've staked out the vestibule support on this side. And that's mainly because you can kind of tell maybe from the sidelines the wind is blowing in from behind me as I'm standing right now. And that's causing the Durston catches some wind. Probably would have been better if I had pitched it 90 degrees from this angle so that the top ridge line faced into the wind, which would have been that way. But instead I put the wide side toward the wind, so I just had to add a few extra stakes. You can see I don't have to stake out the back side at all because it's pitched fine. But I think this will do. It's an odd benefit I discovered at this site is that the pre-designated tenting boxes are just a little bit wider, like maybe a foot total wider than the widest side of the Durston pitch, and that meant that the important part of a Durston pitch is to get it square when you stake out the first 4 corners, and I haven't done that completely, but I was able to use the timbers as a guideline for staking out the Durston square when I started, and so that made it a little bit easier to get the whole thing square. So next up I will load everything into the tent, and then I will go about making dinner. I have to filter water. You can see it over there on the ground, but it's already collected. So I'll get everything in the tent. That's the next camp chore. And lay out my sleeping area and start letting my sleeping bag loft up. Then I'll change into camp clothes, and then I'll go about fixing some dinner. And I guess the benefit to stopping hiking at 2 o'clock today is I have a lot of time to take my time thinking about my camp routine. I haven't been real organized so far, and setting up the tent and the arranging of the living area inside of it, and that costs me time in the morning and is frustrating. And so I'm going to try to settle into some patterns here and learn how to do this well, like I've seen some other folks who do it a lot do it. So, but anyway, there's my shelter set up. Data here from the end of my day at Rod Hollow Shelter. I covered 13.9 miles today, or 12.9 miles, and started off at 7, was done by 3. I got here, did my camp chores, filtered some water, which is what I'm finishing up on right here. Get that in the camera. Anyway, I'm gonna hit the hay a little bit early today so that I can get up early tomorrow morning and head to the roller coaster. Today went well, and it's a pretty cruisy hike from Manassas down here. Probably 1,000 feet of uphill and 2,000 of downhill, and a lot of it is very cruisy. Nothing particularly difficult, so I made really good time. Came across a couple of section hikers of my peer group and had good conversations with some of them. One fellow named Atlas, who is working on a multi-year section hike of the whole trail. He's got about, I think he said 1,200 miles in, and he hopes to finish by the time he's 70, and he is 67 now. So thanks for the conversations to Atlas and his friends and a couple of other people. I'm going to tidy up the camp here now, and then I may talk a little bit here in a minute about what the plan is for tomorrow. So I made a hasty retreat back into my tent because it was getting just a little bit chilly outside. Temperature's been kind of up and down all day, and it's going down and it's getting later. So I pitched the Durston in particular because it's a little bit warmer inside the tent than out. And here's the plan for tomorrow. So you see where it says Rod Hollow Shelter, that's where I am now. And on the next column over it says Bears Den Rocks, Bears Den Hostel. That's where I'm headed. It's, as you can see, it's a slightly short of 10 miles actually, but pull back a little bit. That little sawtooth configuration of hills there, starting with the 2 right there on the upper left. That's what I'll be hiking tomorrow. So it's a total of 7 peaks. They're only about 500 to 700 foot climbs, but as you can see, you go up 1, down 1, up 1, down 1, basically all day long. There are 7 of them in a row. There are no switchbacks. It's just straight up and straight down, and from everyone I've ever talked to, has not a good thing to say about any of this section of this trail. So this is probably, for this month out on trail for me, this will be the toughest section I hike probably, unless I get to parts of Pennsylvania north of Duncannon, which is probably not likely at this point. So I'm going to get up early, have a hot breakfast to get myself all fueled up. I'm going to hike slow and patiently. I'm going to take breaks when I need them. And hopefully by tomorrow night, I'll be in my room at the Bear's Den with, if not interesting views to have shared all day long, at least interesting stories about having gotten through 10.5 of the 13 miles of the infamous roller coaster here on what will probably be about my 14th day on trail, something like that. So for that, I'm going to say good night, and hope you all had a good day, and happy trails to each of you.